Nahum Diaz trains at 7th Generation Jiu Jitsu. What's going on, my
Yes,
man?
sir. What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the show. We're going to start the podcast as well, and I'm going to do a whole little intro, and then we'll get going there. We'll get that recorded. If you're checking this out on YouTube, just so you know, this will be streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically all the major platforms. But let's go. Let's hit the record button for the podcast here. Oh, hold on one second. Let's start over. Get my audio right here. Okay, there we go. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right. This is Dr. B. Welcome back to the 7th Generation podcast. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's hot here in the Central Valley. And I'm sitting down with my good friend Nahum from 7th Generation Jiu Jitsu. How you doing, Nahum?
Dude, I'm doing great. Just finished up a run. Like you
Yeah.
said, sunny.
Yeah. So how was the run this morning?
Ooh, it was brutal, but man, I feel great.
I know the run that you do because I don't do it. I watch you do it. It's brutal. So basically what Nahum does is he runs the stadiums at one of the local high schools, and then you run the track, and then you go to the stadiums on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a brutal course that you do. And whenever I go there with you, I'm just doing the stadiums and then walking around the track. So I don't know how you do it, my man. But welcome to the show. Your first time here on the 7th Generation podcast. I really appreciate you joining me. And I don't really have a lot scripted. I just wanted to get you on the show, talk a little bit about jujitsu, your background, your schooling, your education, and just some of the things that you have going on in your life. Are you down for that?
Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah, right on, man. Right on. But yeah, before we get too far in to the show, we had a tournament yesterday, and we had our kids fight in the tournament. And so I definitely want to cover that. And when I say our kids, we had our kids from the gym, and you help out with the kids program along with Coach Sarah and a lot of different team members that have put in a lot of work with that program. But I felt really good yesterday. It was kind of scary, though. I'm not gonna lie. It was definitely scary. How did you feel about the kids competing?
I was scared as well. I knew they were gonna do great, but I was kind of more scared for myself being in the corner. I just didn't want to mess up and say the wrong thing, and then just cost the match for the kids. But luckily that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did amazing. It was such an honor and a privilege just to be there.
Yeah.
I was definitely impressed too.
I totally agree. I mean, I feel so good about what we've done with the kids program, and I was always fearful on having a program for the kids just because of, the commitment with the kids and the parents. It's a lot different than working with adults, and a lot of work as well. And of course, because of all the help that I've had at the gym, we've been able to build, I feel like a very solid kids program, barely out the gate still. It's a little over a year old. And man, I feel like our kids are going to be amazing, and it's growing. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, yeah, I was really nervous, but also very happy with the results, and also very happy for everybody else who competed as well. So, any other thoughts about competition yesterday?
You know what? It just it was really great to see the resilience not only of the kids but of the adults as well. But
Yeah.
because when you're a kid, you're naturally resilient, But it was their first competition. They all did amazing, and then afterwards, their attitudes were beyond like grateful and happy just to get the opportunity to compete as well. And as a coach, that's kind of like what you want. You don't want them to be a bad sport after a loss, and I was really happy seeing that.
Yeah, I agree. Seeing the emotions with the kids, that's it's really interesting just how much they give, right,
Mhm.
to what they put out on the mat. it's emotional, man, for them. It's really
Yeah.
emotional for them, and of course, we want them to do well. But yeah, all the kids got you could tell were, got a little bit emotional, and then we had a lot of support for them, which was good. And I think that also added
Hmm.
to maybe the pressure. I don't know if it was pressure, but just I think that just added to it as well. But yeah, I really wanted the first kids competition to be a supportive environment where the kids, yeah, maybe they're a little stressed out, maybe they're a little uncomfortable. It's a big venue, wasn't that big, but for them it could be massive, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted them to know that we supported them. That's it.
Yeah.
That no matter what, win, lose, or draw, we support them, and we're going to be there to um, help them in whatever way that we can help them. And that's
Definitely.
really what I wanted. And I felt like, man, we had so much support there yesterday. It was just really heartwarming. So I felt really, really good about that. And then of course the adults, yeah. I mean, watching the adults compete is always a good time. And we always do very well at tournaments. I feel like our gym is very, very competitive. Uh, Whenever we compete, nobody really knows who we are. Nobody knows who Seven Generation is, where our school is, what our lineage is, because we don't really put that information out there. We just go, we're a small gym, but we're highly competitive, and I feel like we always show up really well. And I think that we did that yesterday, and so yeah, it made me very happy. Obviously, there's always stuff to work on. Nothing's ever perfect, man. That's one thing about competition. It'll always teach you a little something about yourself if you're a competitor, and we can talk about that throughout the show. And then also as a coach, like it shows me just like things that we need to work on, and maybe some areas that we're deficient in. And that's why I personally, as a gym owner and a coach, I like the competition side of jujitsu for that reason specifically, because I know, okay, I need to work on this. Here's something that we're lacking in, and I need to
Hmm.
focus more on that part of jujitsu. But let's kind of circle back around, and for my audience, your first time on the show, just tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up, and
Yeah.
man, how you got to this point in your life. Go back as far as you
Ooh,
want to go back.
I can tell you my whole life story right
Let's
now if you
hear it,
want.
man. Oh yeah, I do. I want to hear it. Yeah.
Man. Well, I grew up in Mexico. Well, sorry, I was born in Mexico, and my parents immigrated here in year 2000. So I was only 3 years old. I was born in 1997.
So you moved here when you were 3?
Yeah. And I grew up here. My parents came with a visa. My dad was in the military, and so they actually granted him like a 10-year visa. The thing where he dropped the ball was that, he never went back and forth to keep that visa active. So we kind of just stayed here, and our family went into what's called like visa overstays. Um, but it would have really been easy because he had a 10-year window to like just go back and keep that visa active. That way everything was legal, right? But when you don't really know the correct protocols, get some bad advice maybe. Well, things happen. So he just stayed here. We became visa overstays, and then um, he had to apply for permanent residency, and
Okay.
so it was. He applied in year 2003, and for a permanent residency, it's like everyone knows that as a green card, right?
Right.
And so we grew up kind of like with that fear of getting deported, and so that's kind of that's one of the things that kind of like tailored my life a little bit. But so that went down, right? And then
So
so
can I ask you just about like the fear of being deported? At what age did you know? Did you learn? Hey, you know what? My family may not be here with the proper legal status. And when did that fear
mm,
kick in? At what time in
well,
your life?
yeah, well, actually, like as far as I can remember, I knew that we were here illegally, right? Because my parents, especially my dad, he made it like a point to instill it in our head to make sure that we do not let people know that I was born in Mexico. he said, like, as a kid, once people know that you were born in Mexico, they're probably gonna start looking into it, see you the wrong way, think, you're here illegally, then call ICE, which that's kind of like drastic, like in hindsight, thinking that they'll view a kid that way. But my dad, he was scared. He was kind of like a pessimist in a way. And
Yeah, I mean, he's looking at the worst case
yeah.
scenario, which that has happened to people,
Hmm.
right? It's actually
Yeah.
happened where people have, unfortunately, have been sent back and they've been put in a bad status to where
Hmm.
they could never come back legally. And um, so growing up, you had that instilled in you by your father,
Yeah.
this fear that, hey, I got to be careful. Man, that had to have been rough. I mean, I just can't imagine like what was going through
Yeah.
your head as a kid. Like,
So
tell us, kind of
yeah.
walk us through that?
So as a kid, right? And I'm I have an older brother, but I was kind of more of like the rebel kid. Um, and so I kind of walked that fine line of trying to get away with stuff, like being just a dumb kid and messing around, but to keep it um on the side of the line where I wouldn't get in trouble, or at least not caught, to make sure I didn't get like in trouble with the authorities, because I knew that would lead to something bigger. It was spiral. So in my head, I was always like scared, but I was still like kind of like rambunctious and try to like find things that I can still get away with. So
Right.
that's kind of like how I kind of grew up. I'm scared, but at the same time, trying to see what I can, get away with, how far I can push the
Pushing the
line.
limits a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're pushing the limits. No, I have a lot of experience with that
Yeah.
myself. Yeah. And so did your family have a plan of action? Was there, I mean, obviously I'm going to assume that the long-term goal was to eventually get residency and then
Mhm.
become citizens, right?
Yeah, so that was what the goal was. The way that the green card works is that you need a sponsor, whether it's like a spouse, whether it's parents, children, or siblings, right? And sometimes you can even do it like through work. Um, but the way that my dad filed for the green card was through his brother. His brother was a citizen, and that's like the one that takes the longest. And so, just to kind of put it in perspective, like my parents finally got their permanent residency, so the green card. And that's why I'm so at liberty of talking to this now, because I'm not scared that anything's gonna happen. Like, they're here legally,
So they're here.
And
Your
so
parents are good to go
yeah,
now.
yeah. For me, like, who cares? Take me, like I'll figure it out.
Oh man,
But for my
we'll get you back here now. We'll figure we'll help
you
you
know
figure it out,
but
man.
for my parents, they're good now. Everything's good, so I don't have a problem talking about it. But that all happened just last year. They finally got their permanent residency last year, but that was through my sister, because um when they applied for through my uncle, that process takes for years. So
Mm.
sometimes it takes up to like 20 years. I mean, we applied in 2003, and well, last year was 2023. So I was 20 years of just like it being in review, right? And like, if you don't have money to push it with the lawyers, it just takes forever. They kind of just leave it on the
Wow.
back burner. And so my sister finally turned 21, and then my family scrounged up some money, and then we kind of did the readjustment, and they applied through my little sister, so because she was born here. And
Wow.
yeah, and so finally, that one was real fast. Within the year, they got their permanent residency, and my mom was able to travel to Mexico already and visit my grandma, which she hadn't seen in 20 years.
It's
and
incredible.
and so, man, that was beautiful. They took videos and everything,
So
and
you have not been back
I haven't been back.
since you
No.
were 3.
Yeah,
And
since I
this
was
is all
3.
you know. All you know is the United
No.
States. When you were
Yeah.
3, do you remember anything about Mexico?
Mm-mm. Nope, I don't,
Yeah.
like, at all. I have one vague memory, and that's just because I have a scar on my hand of my aunt's dog biting me, and that's like the only that's like the
It's a
only thing in
traumatic
Mexico.
it's a
Yeah.
traumatic memory at that.
But for myself, I'm here legally due to a law called the DACA, is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and that kind of launched, I believe it was like in 2008, 2009. Um, but and that's kind of basically just like a work permit for kids so that they can like stay here and go to school and they're here legally, right?
So the Dream Act, how does that
Yeah.
affect you?
So that allows me to be here legally without any. Um,
Is that DACA?
yeah, that's
The Dream.
DACA.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
Dream
DACA.
Act
So the
DACA.
Dream
Yeah,
Act is DACA.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
the
So
same
it
thing.
allows you to be
To be
here to
here,
work.
to work, to go to school, um, basically to have a driver's license because a lot of people, they don't know that if you're not here legally, you at a time you couldn't get a driver's license. So without a driver's license, you can't buy a vehicle, you can't get car insurance, or it will be real high. So there's little things like that that it kind of helped with. Get a good job, or else I'd be in the fields right now working. But yeah, but the thing is, you have to renew it every 2 years, and and I actually just renewed mine this past month. So it expired on Friday. I was up in Tracy picking up my new card, and I had to go to the DMV to renew my license because it's only 2 years.
Wow, man. So this has quite obviously been quite a journey for your family, and um, but the long term goal is to
Hmm.
become citizens,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, is to
yeah.
become citizens. Now, you did try to join the military. You were
Hmm.
denied the
Yeah.
ability to join the
Yeah.
military,
So, like I said, my dad was in the military in Mexico, and so that's what I always wanted to do. I just wanted to be in the military here, be like my dad. And when I was when I was a kid, all I would hear was that, oh yeah, like I know someone that became a citizen through the military. So I was like, oh okay, then there'd be no problem. And when I got to high school, and one of my best friends at the time, he was actually going to become a Marine, and then we had built this plan to to become Marines together. The Marines had this I don't know if they still have it. They had this program. I was called the buddy program, where they would put you in the same barracks
yeah.
during basic training. So we're like, okay, cool. We'll be going through the same shit like together. We went together to the recruiter, and he was like the first student in as a senior to get enlisted. And then, well, my stuff was just taking forever. And then, the recruiters, they don't really deal with people in my situation often. So it took a real long time just to get rejected, because
Wow.
yes, you can get your citizenship through the military, but you have to be a permanent residency to be allowed to go into the military, and I didn't have that at the
So at the
time.
time, you didn't have your permanent residency,
Hmm.
and so you've had we do have situations where people from Mexico have come here and
Hmm.
been able to join the military, but the stipulation is they have to have those
Hmm.
documents, and
Yeah.
you didn't have that at the
Mm.
time. Yeah,
back in
man.
back in the day, they would have this program called like Mabni. So like, I once I got denied, I started researching, right? Because I was like, there's no way, like, supposedly all these people did it, it's like, why can't I? And
Right.
there was this program called Mabni, which they would take like non-citizens from like different countries and enlist them into the military, but you needed like a special skill, like you needed to be medically trained, or you needed to know like a
Oh,
a language that would help. And so I was like, I can learn a language. I'll learn Arabic right now. Like, if that's what it takes. But then I started looking into it. Those programs are discontinued, or there might be programs out there, but that are real low key. So but yeah, so I wasn't able to do that. So then um, the next thing was college. And so I had never really thought of going to college because I was just wanted to go into the military. And so and talked to my Spanish teacher, Mr. Gomez, which he kind of like guided me through high school. I had him almost every single year.
shout out
And
to Mr.
yeah,
Gomez.
shout out to Mr. Gomez for sure. Um, and he told me, well, your second best option is just to go to college. So he helped me apply. I got into all the colleges that I applied to, and I ultimately ended up choosing Fresno.
And you're not from Fresno.
No, I actually, when I came to the US, we went to LA. And then my dad got a job up in Tracy with his brother, and I grew up in Tracy.
Okay, so Tracy, California, we're talking
Hmm.
about 2 hours north of Fresno.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, close to the Bay Area. Yeah. And so you were able to get into Fresno State. And
Hmm.
what did you major in?
Yeah. So my major is forensic behavioral science, criminology. And so I still kind of had that idea of like, okay, well, I still want to go into that same, same field. Um, and in my head, I was like, well, it's gonna take 4 years for me to graduate, anyways. In 4 years, a lot can change. In laws, in politics. So I'll get my degree, and then once I get my degree, then I can become a military officer, and I can, fulfill my dream.
Yeah.
And well, by the time I was like a junior, I saw that nothing was really changing at all. And I kind of had to find something because I don't want to, just stay stuck in the same position, just praying and hoping. And so, and then I couldn't be a police officer at the time. Now, actually, they're actually accepting in specific departments. They're accepting people with just a work permit to
Wow.
be a police officer, right? Um, but I feel like it's already a little bit past like my time. Like if they would have just came out with this, then they would have let me do it like when I was in college or right out of college.
You probably would have
Yeah, I would have
pursued that.
I would have
Yeah.
definitely pursued that.
Yeah. Do you regret the degree? Do you look back at your education and think, I should have majored in something else?
Probably the degree, yes, because I was just kind of kidding myself. I should have pursued something else, maybe like business marketing or just any other topic that interests me. But like as far as like going to college and getting the education, I don't regret that at all.
Okay. Yeah. No, for sure, man. I'm, glad you said that because I feel like, and again, I'm not saying that college is for everybody. I think there are some people who, just for whatever reason, that's not what they desire.
Hmm.
But I feel like for most people to be able to have a greater chance of making it in the society that we live in, which is difficult now, a college degree definitely does help.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps a lot, and there's a lot of research just shows that people with a college degree, they make more money at the end of their life, they
Hmm.
live longer, they tend to be happier, less depressed. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just there's a lot of good things that correlate well with getting an education.
definitely.
So,
And
yeah.
I also like to add on, I agree, but not just because of the educational factor in the degree itself. Because when I was in college, like it made me grow as a person. It taught me about life, about relations, both personal and business. And so, yeah, I agree. Going to college is definitely an amazing thing to grow as a person in several different aspects.
Yeah, and I think too, just it shows you discipline, commitment.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to go to class.
Hmm.
I have responsibilities. I have to do this paper. I have to make sure my assignments are done. It teaches you to be organized. And even if you don't ever use that degree
Yeah.
for whatever you decide to major in, you've you're going to come away with all kinds of different life skills. They're
Hmm.
going to help you out. I totally feel that way. Just like college changed my life in so many amazing ways. And I would say the most important ways is just what you had said is just the fact
Yeah.
that it just teaches you about relationships and just so much more than just what you learn from picking up a book.
Hmm.
And people always say one of the things I hear a lot from people who don't have an education, like, oh well, educated people are just you just become book smart. And I'm like, no.
Hmm.
I'm like, no. You learn, trust me, you learn a lot about life. You learn a lot about life that uh, I feel like maybe some people who don't go to college are never going to learn.
Yeah.
And so it's not just becoming book smart. It's not just about, learning about history or literature or whatever it is, philosophy, whatever stuff you're majoring in. It teaches you so much more about, I think, about yourself. And again, it's not the end all be all, but I feel like there's just so many benefits from getting a college degree. And um, I feel like, man, if you get a degree, you never use it, you're still going to benefit.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of your case, right? So you yet to go into law enforcement. Doesn't sound like that's really what you want to pursue,
Yeah.
but you have a degree that's kind of geared towards that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your time at Fresno State. What was that? What was college life
Man.
like for you? You were in a fraternity, right?
Yeah.
You're a frat boy.
Yeah. Mika Omega, shout out. But it's multicultural fraternity. We only have one
Nice.
chapter, so that's one of the reasons why I kind of liked it. You know, smaller, it was more intimate, and it was like great people just like myself. You know, um, definitely a lot of partying, which was real cool. Real cool. Always something going on, you know, and that just made it fun. But you know, at the same time, it gives you a lot of connections
Yeah.
in terms of like career wise, and like it helps you get through difficult, you know, stuff like the curriculum. There's a lot of like people that had taken the classes before. They had a lot of input. They helped me pass some specific classes, or just being there when you need someone, because like I said, I am from a different town, and sometimes I couldn't just travel back, and I
Yeah.
needed someone away, you know.
It's a
So
brotherhood. It's a
yeah,
brotherhood, right? Yeah,
definitely.
it's a brotherhood. It's just like my motorcycle club. I mean, that's what when people ask, well, what do you get from that? Well, you get
Hmm.
job opportunities. Like, man, you help each other out if you need a job, and you
Yeah.
can, um, you know, uh, get an opportunity from a brother. Just having people to talk to, having people to hang out with, having
Hmm.
support. Man, there's just so many different benefits that you get from having that kind of family, so
Yeah.
to speak, right? And uh, do you still stay in contact with your brothers?
I stay in contact with a lot of them. A lot of them I don't really talk to anymore, but that's more of like because of me, because I'm trying to focus on, you know, other aspects, and they're kind of doing their own thing too. But I'm the type of person that even if I don't talk to my friends for a long period of time, like when I do, I kind of pick up at the where we left off. That's the type of person I am. I don't need to really be in contact every single day with someone.
Yeah.
um Plus, you know, like right now I'm kind of striving to compete more in jiu-jitsu, so I gotta kind of stay like in my lane, stay sober. You know, and a lot of those guys that, you know, they love to drink. So
Yeah,
and you know, like and not like, it's not that I get peer pressured easy, it's just that I'm gonna want to do
for
it. You know,
sure.
or I'm gonna peer pressure them into letting me do it, you know.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I just trying to stay away for now, but eventually, you know, we'll get back to that.
Yeah. I mean, what the journey that you're on, and I think that's a good segue into that is one where you have to have a lot of focus
Hmm.
because you're looking to compete. You're trying to compete full time to grow your jujitsu resume,
Yeah.
and in order to do that, you do have to make changes in your life. I know that you there was a time recently where you could not train as much,
Hmm.
but things have shifted now, and so you're able to train more, and you have been competing. You want to compete more. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, okay, you started jujitsu, you wanted to lose some
Hmm.
weight. Maybe you can start right there with why you started
Yeah.
jujitsu and lead us up to this point now where you're just kind of pushing your chips in. I want to be a
Yeah.
competitor.
Well, the reason I started actually was because I've been a lifelong combat sport like enthusiast, right? I've been a fan for a real long time. My dad's actually black belt in Taekwondo, and
That's dope.
all my life, like I wanted to be a martial artist. And you know, as a kid, my dad didn't want to teach me and my brother because he didn't want to get into it, and then us not, you know, not follow through, and then, you know, kind of like leave him hanging and break his heart. So he told us, if you guys actually want to do it, it's up to you to figure out how and find a way, find your own way, you know.
That's so interesting. I've heard this story before from some fathers
Yeah.
where they didn't show their kids a martial art. They were just like, you know what? I didn't want to push it on them and then have them not love it like I loved it, and
Hmm.
then just like crush me. And so they just kind of let them figure it out
Yeah.
on their own. That's really interesting. I didn't know that, man. Your
Yeah.
dad's a black belt.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
And so fast forward to when I'm an adult, I kind of, this was like in 2021, kind of was in a real shitty spot. um Kind of felt like it was like my rock bottom for in many aspects. One being that I was real fat, and you know, my confidence kind of comes from, you know, my appearance. Because like I always thought, like, you know, you look good, you feel good, you know, good things happen. And you know, I had just left the company I was working with, so I wasn't making any money, and then I was getting fat. I was crashing on one of my fraternity brothers' couch. So it was just a real bad spot. So I was like, "Fuck this, man! I'm just gonna do something that I've always wanted to do." Like, there's no point of trying to do something that I don't want to do anymore, right? So I always I always like send memes to one of my friends, Julian, which he was actually the one that introduced me to your gym, and he was like, "Hey, I just recently started this gym. I think it was a couple weeks in, maybe like a month or
Yeah.
two." He was like, "It's pretty cool. It's real cheap too. So,
We
you don't
were really
gotta
inexpensive back then.
yeah, you don't gotta break the bank to start."
Yeah.
And because I mean, like I said, I wasn't really making any money.
Jiu-jitsu is expensive.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu is expensive.
Super expensive. Yeah. And
And
at that time we were located in this really rugged part of Fresno.
yeah,
What did you think when you
bro,
first
I love that. I loved it because that's like when like the art's like good. That's when like it's like you're gonna be training with a bunch of badasses that it's not like watered down just to kind of like
Yeah.
please like the public or whatever. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It's a good point. Yeah. I mean, obviously we were super dedicated to the art because where we were located, it was so rugged and we had people just wanted to train. And
Mhm.
that's really kind of like what how seventh generation got started. It wasn't about, like you said, marketing to people, trying to sell patches and gis or
Mhm.
anything like that. Things have changed though recently.
For
We could talk about that later.
sure.
But so Julian, big shout
Mhm.
out to him too, because I miss him. I was so there's certain people when they have left the gym, like I'm like, oh man, he was one. I was just
Yeah.
really it really made me sad when he decided to move away for work. I mean, obviously, I was really happy for him professionally
Mhm.
because he had a job that he really wanted, but he was just a good person and a really
No.
good training partner. And he's a blue belt now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It took him a while to find a gym, I know, but he's still part of our family, our seven generation family. And so he's the one that introduces you to seven
Yeah.
generation. You're not things aren't really going well in your life.
Mhm.
Then you start training, and then what happens from there?
Yeah, well, from there, it's funny about just fitness in general, not just jujitsu, but I think jujitsu enhances it a little bit more than just general fitness. But when you start like seeing progress in your own body, right, you kind of start getting out of that bad funk that you're in. That's why a lot of people that are in the fitness industry don't really like believe in depression because because when you are in the gym constantly like working on yourself, it's hard to kind of be in a depressed state,
Yeah.
like hating on yourself because you see all this like positive growth, regardless of like what athletic sport you're training, right? And that's kind of what started happening for me, especially because like my confidence does kind of stem from like my physical appearance for myself, at least for the root of it. And so I started seeing those changes, and not only that, like I said, I've always wanted to train martial arts, right? And so I just got caught the jiu-jitsu bug, couldn't stay away. Um, I was like doing just like different like jobs here and there, so it's like I could train like a lot, like every day of the week, and so I was just in there, and it just kind of like
Yeah.
it reset my mindset. It took me out of the dump, and I just started like my wheels started turning again to get my life going in a positive direction. And so yeah, that's kind of like what happened to me and with the beginning of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So you started and you started seeing a lot of great changes,
Hmm.
physically, obviously emotionally as well. I think it's a big thing for that people who don't train and then come and train. That's like a major factor,
Hmm.
I think, in a lot of people continuing to train jujitsu is that these changes are real and they
Yeah.
they come on. If you stick with jujitsu, you're going to transform your body,
Hmm.
you're going to transform your mind, and for me, that's like probably the one of the most important reasons why I continued to train, because when I didn't train, it was easy for me to fall back into that. I don't feel good about
Yeah.
myself. When you're training, you're able to keep your weight down. I've always struggled with my weight. I never got gained a lot of weight, but I don't feel good when I'm heavy.
Hmm.
I just don't feel good. And jujitsu just makes me feel good. It makes me feel good about myself, makes me feel good about just my general outlook in life. I'm like, man, if I could come into the gym and suffer and train and sweat, man, I could accomplish anything.
Yeah.
It gives me that I don't know, just certain kind of confidence I get from training. And I hear this so much, and so I love the story that you're telling here. Um, and so you eventually earn your blue belt
Hmm.
from Seventh Generation. You did fight MMA
Yeah.
as well. Um, you feel comfortable talking about
Yeah.
that experience? Yeah,
Definitely.
let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about your MMA journey. And it didn't it's not something that uh, has continued,
Hmm.
but possibly you never know, right?
Hmm.
Something. So why don't you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit? So you trained jujitsu, you got your blue belt, right? And then you decided you're gonna do an amateur MMA fight.
Yeah, dude. So look, like, let me put it in simple terms. I got my blue belt. I was feeling on top of the world. So when you had reached out for the 5 for 9 fights, it's like a local amateur MMA um, competition that they do here in Visalia. When you had reached out for people to do grappling, um, I was like, well, fuck it. I'm gonna just do an MMA fight. Like I had just got my blue belt. I felt like undefeatable, you know?
Yeah.
And I just felt like I felt great. And I had always wanted to do it too. So I was like, well, I'm just take this opportunity. And then like when you reply, like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. Then I was like, oh well, there's no turning back now, you know? I feel like if you would have been like, oh, are you sure? Or let's talk about it, or maybe just start with the grappling fight first. I think then I wouldn't have catapulted. I would have probably thought of more about it. But since you were like all for it, I was like, oh fuck yeah, this is just what I need.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Well, I go in there, right. I prepared as much as I could, and then I get annihilated in the first round. I get taken down, and then I get knocked out. Um, then when I come back from like being concussed or sorry, unconscious in the fight, and then I just see the blood, like really like the only thing that ran through my head was like, oh fuck, I lost, like.
Yeah.
But after that, I was like, it wasn't that bad, it was pretty fun. It was still fun, it felt real
Yeah.
cool being in the environment, and I have no regrets. I want to fight again, just that like right now, and we'll talk more about it. I feel like I'm on a little bit different journey
Yeah.
at the moment. But like I do want to circle back and definitely do some more fights to get a
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, right now, obviously you have a different kind of
mhm,
focus. You're on a different path, but there's nothing that says, hey, you can't circle
mhm,
back and maybe complete that circle. Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you from like a coach's perspective, like watching all of you compete, whether it's MMA, whether it's jujitsu, like all I want for all of my students, I just want you guys to perform well. I want you guys to be happy. And it just like it devastates me when you and my other students maybe don't get what they wanted to get out of a
mhm,
tournament. Maybe they didn't perform as well as they wanted to perform. I just want to see all of you guys do well. And I'll say that did hit me really hard. I
mhm,
was really man, it was very upsetting to me. Very, very difficult for me to deal with that loss, just because of the kind of person that you are, how
mhm,
much you train too. Like you trained really, really hard for that fight, and I remember you put in the work. Like
mhm,
you're not the kind of person. One thing I can say about you, and what I appreciate um, um, about you, is your work ethic. Is like you have this work ethic that I feel like most people just don't have, and I feel like I don't know if it comes natural to you, but it definitely does shine through in the gym and the things that you take on. You can just tell like you just have a next level type of work ethic, and that showed leading up to the fight, the work that you put in and whatnot. I feel like maybe where I failed you and again, I do a lot of reflecting on these things.
Mhm.
Where I failed you was I needed to look in, and I swore after this is I needed to look into the opponents more. I need
Mhm.
to make sure that we're dealing with people that um, you're going to be able to have a good opportunity against. And I feel like the one area that you were lacking at the time was the wrestling.
Mhm.
That was the one area. Your stand up was fine. Like your hands are phenomenal. Like, man, I remember doing a little sparring with you, and you were like, "You didn't want to hit me." Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
You didn't want to punch me in my face. And I remember watching you spar, and I'm like, "Man, if you lay hands on this guy, you touch this guy, you're going to be fine. If you stay on your feet, you're going to be fine." But that was an area that I recognized with you was the lack of wrestling, and you were deficient in your wrestling. I think that's an area that we've improved a lot with your wrestling over time. But at that time, that was
Mhm.
certainly like a super big concern. That was like one of my thoughts going into the fight. It was like he stays on his feet, man, he's gonna knock this guy out. Um, but I was worried about you getting taken down,
Mhm.
and that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
The guy, he didn't even try to exchange with
Yeah.
you. He didn't want nothing to do with your hands, and he just the cage was really small, if I remember correctly. It was really small, and there wasn't a lot of room in there, man. And he was just able to crowd you, get you to the mat, and he was able to finish from the mount position. But but yeah, that's something I thought about. I was like, well, if I would have got him the right opponent, and
Mhm.
that's something that I was really upset about. That I feel like I didn't do my due diligence to make sure that we're getting you the right kind of opponent. And that's what one thing like I've counseled Kale on recently. And I've told him, I like, look, you want to fight, you want to continue to fight, that's fine.
Mhm.
Fight. Because it's not easy for me as a coach to watch you guys go in there and get hit,
Yeah.
get punched in the face. It's just not like, and to for things not to turn out your guys' way. And so I've told Kale, like, if you want to fight, I just want you to fight the right
Mhm.
fighters. I don't want you to be in a situation to where you're going to get knocked out, and it's just not, you're not going to have a chance to be in the fight.
Yeah.
And his last fight, he was fighting against the right kind of person, and it was a great fight.
It
It was a
was, yeah.
war, man. It was an unbelievable fight, and it was one of my greatest memories that I've had. It's one of the greatest memories that I've had, I guess, as a coach and doing this thing with jujitsu and a little bit of MMA. And then of course your situation was like one of my worst nightmares. It was hard. It was really hard for me. Like I was devastated. I was devastated for days. Um, uh, and then of course, like the way that you handled yourself, the way that you took that loss, it just said a lot about you as a person
Mhm.
and your mental strength as well. Your the will that you have, and you're just definitely a different kind of person because even for me, I feel like I was more devastated than you were. you
Nah, but
know uh,
it was just cool being in there, and it's in life, it's easy. I feel like it's easier to accept losses, because I feel like at that point I had already like lived a lot, and I had a lot of experience with loss in different aspects. So I feel like when you get to that point where you kind of like accept that loss is inevitable, then it's okay. And I felt like, hey, like I knew, I feel like if I wouldn't have prepared like as much as I did, then I would have been like devastated or beat myself up, or just been mad or sad. But I did everything I could.
you
I
did.
really felt like I did everything I could. And that's the way it happened. But at the end of the day, um, like I said, when I woke up, it wasn't that bad. Like at least I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah.
The way I perceived it, the way I took it. It happens to the best of the people.
Oh
So.
God, everybody. Yeah, it's happened to everybody. There's nobody who is immune to any kind of, whether it's jujitsu,
Mhm.
MMA. Everybody has tasted, that kind of defeat at some
Yeah.
point in time. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And one of the things that I've told Kel, over the years is that you've done something that very few people have the
Mhm.
opportunity to do. Very few people have the opportunity to experience, and I feel that same way about you. No matter what the outcome was, man, you've done something that like less than I don't know what percentage
Mhm.
of the human population has a chance to get in the ring or the cage and square off against another person. And man, to have the guts and the balls to do that, man, says a lot. It says a lot about anybody. I have respect for
Mhm.
any fighter, whether it's boxing, whether it's MMA. It doesn't matter. I mean, I grew up kind of like you, loving martial arts. I was a big fan of boxing. Grew up watching a lot of boxing, and I just, man, I always thought, man, these people are just the greatest warriors,
Mhm.
even when they lost.
Mhm.
Even when they lost, my favorite fighter was growing up was Roberto Duran, and
Yeah.
he had some of the most horrible losses, and then he would come back and the redemption. Like I just love these stories. Love martial arts. But for me as a coach, definitely it's hard like watching all of you guys compete. I want, I mean, of course I want you guys to win.
Mhm.
I want you guys to win, but I want you guys to get the most out of whatever it is that you want to get out of competition. And, I I've sometimes I feel like, well, I could have done this or I could have done that. So that's like the coaches side of it. Um, um, the competition side for you, I mean, obviously, this has not dissuaded you because you still wanted to compete, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So you took a little bit of a break because for work reasons,
Mhm.
you were working, and now you're kind of back to competition. So tell us what's your mindset?
Yeah.
How did you what made you decide to maybe come back around and give this a go?
Well, the reason why I wasn't really training for, I think it was like almost a year. I would still be in the gym, but unfortunately, it was only for like the later fundamental classes. Um, it was because I was trying to like build a career, and I had figured out what I wanted to do, and one of my goals is to open up a weightlifting gym. And so I had a buddy that was actually managing one of the gyms here in Fresno, and so I reached out to him and to see if I can like get into work for them. At his location, they weren't hiring, but he referred me to the other location. I got an interview, and then I started working. So I was like, great, I'm gonna learn as much as I can, work my way up, the ins and outs of the gym business. So that way, like I have the experience, and in the future I can open up my own. And well, I ended up working my way up all the way up to manager, and it took a lot of my time. It was great. I learned a lot, but at the end of the day, it was one of those situations where the owners of the company do take advantage of the management, and you get paid shit, and you're there. Like there were so many hours that I was still there working off the clock, right, on my days
Wow,
off, and like, and then I don't want to talk shit or anything. It is what it is. It happens. That's corporate America for you.
for sure.
But I was just fed up. I had learned enough. I learned what I wanted to learn, and so I was like, you know what, fuck this. It's taking me away from what I want to do, anyways. I have enough experience to where I can, when I can open up my gym, I'm able to run it successfully. And so it was just the right move.
So you're able to get a ton of experience,
Yeah,
a ton of knowledge. Obviously, and you also got the experience of having to deal with corporate America a little
yeah,
bit and see how that works.
definitely.
Yeah, and we were talking about it yesterday. Working for other people, making them rich,
Hmm.
right, and not having something that belongs to you. And so now you're on a different journey now, and obviously involves competition. So
Hmm.
what are you looking to do?
Yeah. So being a gym owner, especially like a weightlifting gym owner, is still part of the plan. And but we're gonna get there in a different way. So the goal, the objective of this journey now is to focus primarily on my jujitsu in terms of competing, to kind of build up my personal brand, and like my business brand on the side as well, so it can lead to like bigger things in terms of both my jujitsu and business as a whole.
Love it. I love it. And so you've had three competitions since
Hmm.
you started training full time again about 4 or 5 months ago,
Yeah.
and within that short time, man, you fought at Worlds, Jiu Jitsu World League, and an IBJJF tournament. I mean, you didn't start at the small tournaments.
Yeah, we
You
jumped
went,
right into the
we
big
jumped
ones.
right into the mix,
Yeah.
and honestly, I feel like it's been good too because as a coach, it's helped me kind of see where the game is today, the highest level of the blue belt level where you're at in the adult division. I feel like I have a way better understanding of that now than I did 6 months ago. So that's a good thing. And the plan is to do some small tournaments, kind of middle size, and then do the big ones this next year, right? Do
Yeah.
as many as you can do.
Definitely, that's the plan. And you know what? I'm glad we started the way we did, because, like I said, I'm the type of person that um, I have enough confidence to know what I want to do, but sometimes I just need that little push, or that like someone to like just agree with me, or telling me I'm in the right direction for me to like take the plunge. So like I'm glad that like we started with the big ones right off the bat, instead of like prolonging it and starting with a little small tournament or whatnot. So that really helps me, helps my mentality, especially like at the last tournament at Worlds, just like the speed of everything. How when I showed up to the venue, I like 10 minutes later I was already warming up, and then I went straight into weigh-ins in the bullpen, and then when they called me up, I didn't even have a chance to like just overthink it. As soon as they called me up, they threw me on the mat, and it was go time. And I kind of like that speed because it keeps me out of my head and keeps me focused on what I need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, and you've shown up well. You've shown up really, really well. And like I said, with the work ethic, the fact that you're um have that competitive mindset already, you're gonna break through. I really truly believe that you're gonna break through. And I think my thinking was like, man, let's just start off with the
Hmm.
biggest one in the world. Let's just do it because it's gonna show you win, lose, or draw. It's gonna show you where you need to get to.
Hmm.
And you're gonna be able to step on the map with the best in the world at this level. And I really wanted you to see that. And I wanted you to see that first of all, I believe that at some point in time, these people are you're going to be able to hang with these individuals, and then also just have the opportunity to see where you need to get to
Yeah.
as well. As opposed to doing it going slow and kind of working our
Hmm.
way up, doing there's nothing wrong with anybody who goes to small tournaments. I think small tournaments are great. They're like the one yesterday, Grapplers X, but there was what, 4 mats?
Yeah.
That's it, 4 mats. 4 matches going on at the same time, that's it. Super small tournament. I started off in a Grapplers, that was my first tournament that I did, was a Grapplers X. Um, but I think, for you having competed in front of like a huge crowd in MMA, having done a Grappler X
Hmm.
previously, I was like, man, let's just go to the big tournaments and then see where we're at, and then we can kind of circle our way back, and then just kind of work our way up.
Hmm.
So tell us about these tournaments and tell us about the competition. So what's it like? What does it feel like against these badass blue belts that you're fighting?
Yeah, man. It's competing is just a different beast. It puts you in a different state of mind that I love. It's like both like real nervousness and excitement at the same time. Um, and it's kind of a out of body experience. The first one was JJWL, and the guy that like, oh, well, here, let me kind of explain what I mean. So at this specific tournament, they put you in the bullpen with everyone, right? And so you're lined up in a little like line with all the people in your bracket. And so like you're just looking around, and in my weight bracket, like I'm competing at 195. And so these guys are like huge. Most of them are, like just solid physique. And so you're looking around, and it's like, fuck, I have to go against these guys. These guys look badass, like. And so there's a little bit of like not, maybe not intimidation, but just um like overthinking of what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so when I'm watching, because I had to buy my first round, I had to buy, so I was watching the guy that I was the match that I was gonna go up against the winner. And this guy, he's real tall. He immediately pulls guard and blows the guy's knee out. Like he jumps guard and just lands on the guy's leg. The knee bent the other way, and they had to they had to take him out
Wow.
in the stretcher, right? So I was like, damn. So now I'm like nervous. I'm like, fuck. I have to watch out. Like I have to make sure that that does not happen to me, right?
100%.
And so I'm real nervous. The guy that caused the accident, he was a little shaken too. So I was like, you know what? Like he's more shaken than me right now. Let me just go all out. I think I can beat him. Um, and so I just go there. This guy has tremendously long limbs.
The dude was tall
Yeah,
and lanky, man. I mean, he was long.
yeah. I was in his guard, and my arms were fully stretched out. You know, my legs were back, and I was still in his guard, and he was still comfortable. It was crazy.
Wow.
So we ended up getting the dub there. We got a modified bow and arrow.
Yeah, that was an interesting fight. Let's just talk more about it because man, I was even like worried because man, this guy was throwing up
Mhm,
triangles. He had the longest legs and he was good. That
mhm,
guy was a solid blue belt. But then you were able to get past his guard
mhm.
and then you were able to get to the back and you finished him. And I remember during the first part of the fight, I was like, because he had a really good guard. And
Yeah.
that's why I was like, oh man, these blue belts now they're just on a different level, especially in the adult
Mhm.
division, which is you're basically talking about the best blue belts. And so you win this match, you go into the finals. Um, Tell us about that match. That guy was pretty damn good.
Yeah, that guy was real good. I felt like, you know what, when I was going up against him, I didn't feel like he was better than me. I felt like we were like on the same level, in terms of our technique and our abilities, because it's in strength as well. Because when when you're standing, you can tell when someone's stronger than you. It's just easy because they'll move you around so easy.
Right.
Or they'll just like, they just wreck you and ragdoll you and take you down, right? But this guy felt like we were matched. We stood for probably like 2 minutes of the match, just going back and forth on takedown attempts.
And it
Um,
was good. You had good exchanges
yeah,
from the feet.
yeah, and then
Really
I
good.
I ended up he actually turned his back, and so I ended up taking his back and taking him down. I ended up on top, and then they he ended up in a half guard. They reset us, and so then I was just trying to pass guard, and this fucker was just quick. He threw up an arm bar, and I defended the first attempt, but then like immediately he threw it up again, and I think that's where I dropped the ball because I thought in my head I was like, oh, I defended it, I'm safe, but no, like he threw it
He
up. I
went back
defended
to
it.
it.
He went straight back into it. But this time, it was a little deeper. He turned belly down, and my arm was fully extended. I couldn't like defend at all, and so I had to tap.
Yeah.
So he ended up getting gold. But that taught me a lot, and it was real cool to go up against these guys.
And those were two tough matches. And up into the point where you got armbarred, you were winning the match. And I think if you didn't get armbarred, I think there was a good chance that you would have won.
that I laugh because that reminds me of a quote. I don't even know if like who the fuck said this quote, but I saw it on Instagram. It said
Yeah.
it was a fighter, and he said, "If I don't lose, I'll probably win." so so yeah, you're right. If I didn't get armbar, I probably would have
I would have
won.
won.
If I didn't lose, I probably would have won. You're right.
Oh, but it's still that. Well, you ended up losing this fight. You took second. There was no open division,
Mhm,
so we were trying to find an open division. Didn't realize
mhm.
that WJJL doesn't have one.
Yeah.
Um, and then we threw you right into the San Jose IBJJF Open. You were able to do your division and the Open as
Mhm.
well, and you got ragdolled. Tell us about
Yeah,
your.
dude. Talk
What's the
about
guy's name? What's
his
the
name is Seamus.
Seamus? Damn,
Yeah,
Seamus is
yeah, solid.
yeah, he solid jujitsu. He sweats a lot though.
Bro, talk about feeling emasculated. Like that's like the word for that. That's how I felt. But I'm proud I didn't get tapped out. but yeah, this guy, he was insane. Like he ragdolled
Really
me.
good jujitsu.
There's a clip on my Instagram where he goes for a spinning armbar. I defend, I stand up, and then he gets the underhook. He makes me turn, takes my back, and then just drops me. He just slams you right on my
And then
back.
Daisy's watching. I'm gonna throw Daisy under the bus right now. Daisy's like, I always wanted to see somebody get picked up and get thrown.
Damn.
And I'm like, well, not Nahum.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was a man, that guy really good jujitsu.
Yeah.
Um one thing I'll say about you, and one thing that anybody who fights you, man, you push the pace. Like you have natural cardio, and on top of that, you work on your cardio to
Mhm.
make it as best as you possibly can. And man, after that match, he was soaked in sweat. It
Mhm.
took him everything to finish that match. And then the second match, I think he was so worn out, he
Yeah.
lost just because he was tired.
Yeah. I think he could have definitely took gold.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he was just tired. And
Yeah.
so and then you ended up in the open division. That match was again, I think a guy from Claudia Franca's school,
I-
really good
Yeah.
school up in the Bay Area. And tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, that one was it was different. It was completely different. I was on top for the most of the match, but that was like a more of like a technical match versus just like athleticism, right? Because
Yeah.
like Siemens was just real athletic. Don't get me wrong, he has great technique too, but just that match, it was
Tank.
yeah, exactly. He was just a tank. This guy that I fought in the open division, I believe he was one weight class under me. Um so, and then I'm on the lower end of my weight class anyway, so it's like the weight difference wasn't like that bad, you know?
Yeah, because you're 195. That's the weight class you're fighting
Yeah.
in, but you were walking around a couple of weeks before you had gotten sick, if I remember correctly. You were down like 184.
Yeah, I was yeah.
It was like you were super, super light.
Mhm.
And so the guy that you fought, he was a little bit smaller, not by much, but he did take you down in the match.
Yeah.
And then you were able to, if I remember correctly, he took you down. Then
Yeah,
he
he got me with the
swept
yeah, he
you.
got me with the foot sweep. Well,
Yeah, I
foot
got you with a
yeah.
foot sweep, and then you were able to re-sweep,
Mhm.
and you guys were just going back and forth. Very technical match.
Yeah, so that was real fun. That was real interesting. I was really happy of my performance, and there was this point where I was on top, and he had me just in a lasso, right? Lasso and a spider, and I was just like driving forward, and I think we made like a whole circle around the mat. That was funny. Like it's cool, like when you're in the middle of a fight and you're still able to kind of like see outside of it. Like I said, it's kind of like a out of body experience. So when that happened, I chuckled in my head during the match, you know. But yeah, like that was real interesting, and you know, and it's cool to see so many different like kinds of matches that you can get into, because like that day I experienced like a real top level like just like monster, and
Yeah.
a high level like technician as well. And so that was real cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. Two completely different matches, different styles. And that's one thing about tournaments. You never know what you're going to go against. You
Hmm.
go against somebody who is just, physically just super imposing, intimidating, and then you go against people who are just like really incredibly technical. And with jujitsu, um, your technical guys will give you a whole completely different look,
Hmm.
right? Then you go against, I'm sure people like you frustrate people just because I feel like your your cardio is everybody you fight is
Hmm.
worn the fuck out. After
Hmm.
I watch your fights, I look at your opponent, and I feel like your opponents are just doing everything just to hang on. I feel like that's what you're bringing right now. And again, 4 months, 5 months into just getting back to training full time, you've done these tournaments, then now we have the worlds,
Hmm.
right? um and tell us about your experience there.
Yeah, so with the world, going into it, I was kind of nervous. Like, you know, you always get those feelings of like, oh, I don't belong here. Like you start minimizing yourself and
Yeah.
whatnot, right? Um, And I always got that feeling like the prior to tournaments, like, oh, these guys are probably gonna be better than me. I'm probably gonna lose. You know, like you walk in there, it's like, damn, like everyone looks like real good. Um, but you know, when I got to the world, I don't know. I felt real good. I felt like I belonged. You know, I was doing my thing, and like when I look around sometimes in tournaments, I get mesmerized at how the skill level is, right? And
Yeah.
just how good these guys are. But like at Worlds, I don't know what it was, or I don't know if it's just because like my jiu-jitsu has grown like so much in these past couple months to where I felt like I'm in a real good place, and like in trajectory, to where like I felt like I belonged. Like I looked around and I was like, damn, you know, like I fucking belong here. Like I can hang with these guys. Like and so, and that plus the speed of how like everything went down, it kind of just played in favor of in my mentality. So I was, you know, I was in a great headspace, you know, and I still believe, like, even though like I did lose my first match, I still believe that like with adjustments I can be in the mix with these guys.
Same.
um
Same.
so but yeah, this match, this guy instantly pulled guard. And so, you know, with Coach Steve and with yourself, I have been working my guard passing. And I was able to implement different aspects of the guard pass, but this guy's guard was just like real good. And
Yeah.
he ended up shooting a triangle and he climbed up my back. And I kind of just like didn't react fast enough, so he locked it up real tight. But when it was locked, right, I really didn't want to lose. I really didn't want to lose, and but it was so tight that I knew I was gonna go to sleep, right? So I was like, fuck, should I just let him put me out? Should I just like go to sleep? Try to tap? I was kind of debating that because I tried to fight it for a cool seconds,
Yeah.
right? But then, you know, you get to a point where you know it's locked. You know, you really can't do anything. And I really did debate just going falling asleep, but I was like, nah, there's literally no point. Like I'm gonna lose regardless. And so I just had a tap. But that one was a little devastating because I felt like I was doing so well.
Yeah. You were doing incredibly well. I mean, honestly, you were right there in the match. And there was a couple times where I think you had come close to passing the
Mhm.
guard. You were definitely threatening with the guard pass. Some of the things that we had worked on, you were employing in the match. Um, I feel like what I've noticed with these blue belts is that when they attack, their attacks are fast,
Mhm.
super quick, and there's not a lot of hesitation,
Yeah.
and they're not sloppy with their attacks. The technical skills of blue belts on that level have increased incredibly over the last decade or so. I don't recall the blue belts just being quite as good. Now these blue belts are they're tapping out black belts in some of these schools. I mean, there's a next level to jujitsu, and I think that's something that what a lot of us have come to realize is that you have your jujitsu practitioner, like myself, you know, somebody who's just focusing more on coaching now. I'm not a competitor any longer. I'm older, and that my focus is different. And I'm a black belt. Been a black belt for this is going to be my 8th year as a black belt. But you know, I was watching some of these blue belts. I'm just like thinking, man, these guys will all give me a hard time.
Mhm.
And you know, even rolling with you, it's just like, man, it's just a different level of jujitsu today. These blue belts, some of them been training for 10 years because they started when they were kids.
Mhm.
And when you see them roll, you don't see a lot of differences in the way that black belts roll. It's
Yeah.
pretty, it's really amazing. The sport has just come so far, which is good. So many more people are competing now. This is all a great thing, but it makes it harder to break through,
Mhm.
right? Whereas, you know, somebody like myself, when I was competing 10 years ago, you know, back in 2008, man, it's like almost, yeah, 15 years ago, and I started competing. And man, you could kind of make a name for yourself. The competitions were much smaller. But now, man, there's so many competitors now than ever before. It's really great for the
Mhm.
sport, but it definitely has increased the competitiveness, I feel, of jujitsu. And you've been able to experience
Yeah.
the high end of that, which is really, really cool. It's cool for me too. Just like as a coach, I feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel like, man, we have a good plan for you. Uh, what in terms of like your competition as a blue belt, can we've kind of made the decision that we're going to keep you here competing. What's your goal? What's your goal?
Yeah, well, in terms of like um being at the belt, like I really don't care, I'm not training jujitsu to get the belt, right? And I can honestly say that because it's become such a big part of my life to where I just love training, and
Yeah,
the belt is the last thing on my mind, right? The goal for me is just to get as good as I possibly can, get in as many tournaments as I can, and compete at the highest level possible. That's what like my end goal is.
yeah, yeah. I love it. I think that's a great goal. Get as good as you can get as
Hmm.
jujitsu. I mean, really, that should be the goal for every single jujitsu practitioner. At least one of the goals should be to get as good as you can get at jujitsu. The belt just doesn't matter. Like I said, I'm a black belt. Been in black belt for 8 years, and but it has no bearing on whether or
Hmm.
not I train. I train because I love to train, and I try to learn as much as I can about the sport, about the martial art, because I love it, because I want to get better at it,
Hmm.
because I want to be able to help my students out as much as I possibly can. And I feel like, man, when you have that kind of mindset, just wanting to get better at jujitsu, it makes it more fun too. It makes it more fun, makes it more interesting. If you just get focused on your belt or your stripe,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I feel like, man, that's not really the point, because at the end of the day, uh, the stripes and the belts and the fancy geese, man, the mat just doesn't lie.
True.
The mat
Yeah.
doesn't lie.
Man, I'd rather be a blue belt tapping out black belts than vice versa,
For
So,
real, for real. Man, being a black belt, man, everybody wants to come at you. And I remember when I got my black belt, like, man, everybody in the gym wanted, let's see how good this black belt
mhm,
is. Let's see if I could tap out a black belt. Everybody wants to get the submission. But yeah, man, I'm really excited about this new journey that you're on. There's so many other topics that we could get
mhm,
into. And I talked to you a little bit about this yesterday about coming back on the show
mhm,
and maybe doing a couple of podcasts maybe every month, and we could talk more about some of the things that you're into.
definitely.
But before we go, I just want you to be able to have the opportunity to share with us, first of all, how can people find you?
Mhm.
And then some of the things that you're involved in business wise.
Yeah. So on social media, my Instagram handle is STC underscore Nahum. My name is spelled Nahum. Gotta spell that out because it is a weird
Yeah.
name. My parents wanted something different, but I think they overshot it a little bit.
I'll only tell you a funny story. So when I first met you, I couldn't even say your first name. It took me I think I called you Diaz for the
Yeah.
longest time. And then
Yeah.
finally I was able to say Naum.
Yep, yeah, it's all good. People say Nahum, Nahim. I don't even care. As long as they get the end at the beginning right,
As long as
then
you get the end
yeah,
right.
then I'll respond to it.
So they can find you on
Yeah,
Instagram, Facebook, or no?
yeah. Facebook as well. It's linked to my Instagram, and then I recently started a TikTok as well. But my
Okay,
my
beautiful.
handle's the same. Yeah, I gotta get into more of TikTok because I really prolonged it. There's a lot of stuff on there that I just have a difficult time like just scrolling to get my algorithm correct
Yeah.
because I just can't like stay on there a long time. Um,
Yeah.
but That's just because I kind of do have like ADHD, but less of visual to I just can't stay sitting for a while.
Yeah. I
I
understand
have to
that.
be moving around. That's why when you see me talking, I move my hands a lot. I just can't stay still.
Same. When I do my tick, I have people when I do my TikToks, they'll like put in the comments, "Can you stop moving your hands?"
That's hilarious. But
So
yeah,
you have so you have your TikTok, you have
mhm.
Facebook, you have Instagram, and you also
Yes,
have a
sir.
website as well.
Yes, I recently created a website. It's called grapplerscorner.com. So the goal for that is it's to be a blog website for like just a whole bunch of like content that relates to grappling in general, or or all kind of types of martial arts. I can take it into different directions. I'm gonna go ahead and start my own podcast that ties into that
Love it.
as well. If the name's not taken, I'm just continue calling it Grappler's Corner. And
Love
then
it.
as far as like business ventures go, I do have a fitness brand. It's called STC Unlimited. So the STC stands for Stay the Course. And that kind of ties into jiu-jitsu as well. So
Yeah.
it only makes sense to bring it into the space. So I'm kind of actually happy to announce that I'm gonna be starting my own jiu-jitsu brand with my fitness brand.
Man, I love it. So you're going to be doing a clothing brand
Mhm.
type of fitness brand,
Mhm.
and you recently did rash guards for the gym,
Yeah.
collaborated
With gameness.
with Gameness, which, man, Gameness has been around for a long time, for a couple of decades, and you're going to do some shorts for us as well. So,
Mhm.
man, we're really excited to have you work with Seventh Generation Jiu Jitsu, helping out our gym in that way. And so, you're going to have the podcast coming,
Mhm.
obviously your website, and if people want to have you on a show,
Yeah.
they could just reach out to you,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
yeah, so you're open for that. If
Yeah.
people are interested in having you on a
Yeah,
podcast.
if they want to hear what I have to say, I'll say it.
I, I
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. But I hope that you would come back and join the show again. I have got so many questions for you. Just stuff related to business, and then also some fitness questions that I have.
Cool.
So maybe we come back, we talk more about fitness, and then we get into a deeper conversation. What I was thinking what we could do is maybe we do a podcast, like just a good introduction. So now maybe next time we just focus in on just like fitness goals,
Mhm.
like how to meet your fitness goals, and just suggestions that you can give my audience as well. And then maybe we can talk about just like competition, things that you do to get yourself ready. If you're down to do that, man, I'd
Yeah,
love
definitely.
to have you back on the
Yeah.
show. Um, get my outro music there
Let's
going.
go.
But yeah, man, thank you for joining Nahum, the Seven Generation Podcast. And I'm looking forward to your podcast coming out. And don't forget, check out Nahum's Instagram. Say it one more time, your Instagram.
STC_Nahum. Nahum.
And that's the same for his Facebook and his TikTok as well. And it's the Grappler's Corner.
Yes, sir.
So the Grappler's Corner, that's the website. And then when the podcast comes out, I'll make sure to let y'all know. We'll promote that. But yeah, this is Dr. B and Nahum, Seven Generation Podcast. We have a few people on here who are checking out the podcast. I appreciate that. And of course, if you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram, 7Gen Podcast. I also have my TikTok as well, Merciless Savages, my YouTube, Dr. B Teaches Sociology. I mean, I'm all over the place now. I'm all over the internet, man. There's no going back now. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, man, I really appreciate you joining the show. And I love your story. And I just, looking forward to what the future holds for you and what journeys that you're going to go on. I think that you're making a lot of really good moves, and man, sky's the limit. So see this thing through and see where it takes us, man.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Seven Generation Podcast. Peace.